Glory, glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. Glory, glory, Lord. You are the mighty God. You are the mighty God. Glory, glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. Glory, glory, Lord. You are the mighty God. You are the mighty God. You who go down to the sea, you who live in the islands, oh, if you live in the city, lift your voice and sing out. Sing out, glory, glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. Glory, glory, Lord. You are the mighty God. You are the mighty God. Sing to the Lord a new song. Sing his praise to the ends of the earth. Let every nation tell it, declare it, till every man is heard. Sing out, glory, glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. Glory, glory, Lord. You are the mighty God. You are the mighty God. Nani, nani, Jehovah. No kanani, Jehovah. Nani, nani, Jehovah. Keakua manaloa. Via le tua. Matote via ole tua. Via le tua. O ole tu mata utia. Glory, glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. We give you glory, Lord. Glory, glory, Lord. You are the mighty God. You are the mighty God. Glory,
Glory, glory, Lord, you indeed. We give you glory, Lord. Let's hope we endeavor to do that every day. It's good to have you with us today, whatever day it is that you're listening to this. I'm actually doing this lesson 2 days after the, 3 days, 2 days after the general or the midterm elections. So I hope we've gotten over that. I hope we're not letting our political differences infest our relational lives that we have together because of Jesus Christ. But we begin today in the 44th Psalm as we continue our study time together. So we're inching toward the 50th Psalm, which would give us a third of the way through the book of Psalms. And as we start today, I want to ask you a question, and I made reference to this before, but I think for this psalm it's important that we bring it up again. How do you feel about complaining to God? You think that God is so holy and so powerful and so wonderful and majestic, which he is, all those things, but he's also loving, and he's forgiving, and he's merciful. He is established by his chesed, which we've talked about many times, that loving kindness or steadfast love or mercy. And God is not afraid of, nor does he forbid us from, our complaints. And that really has a lot to do with today's psalm. The psalmist, this one not attributed to David, is in a big part of it complaints complaints from the people to God about what they say he has done or maybe allowed to happen. And at the same time, they're confessing that they have been faithful to him. I think it's great that this psalm is here because I think it shows us a lot of things about ourselves as well as about God. So let's get into it this morning. What do you say? Of course, we always begin with the overview of the psalm, and for me this morning, this psalm divides itself into 3 sections. Maybe to some degree a lengthy psalm. It's 26 verses. And the first section is verses 1 through 8. And in this section, the psalmist, the psalter, is remembering past victories. And whatever he feels about those past victories, he seems to have some confusion now, because the next section, verses 9 through 22, are really a description of the present distress, what the people are going through, and the complaint. And bottom line, I guess, the complaint seems to be, if I could sum it up, that God's gone to sleep, that he's become inattentive and therefore inactive. And so that leads to the last section, verses 23 through 26, which are then, as we might expect, an appeal for divine aid, for God to take action. Well, it says here in verse 23, wake up. Wake up. I just think we can relate to this. I think we can relate to every stage of it. And I think that's why it's important that it's here. Let's read it together, these 26 verses. The 44th Psalm, beginning in verse 1, and my superscription here says that to the choir master, a maskil, which is some kind of musical or liturgical term, of the sons of Korah. So this psalm, if I may use this, is going to be used as a song in their worship service. Interesting, is it not? It begins, O God, we've heard with our ears, our fathers have told us what deeds you performed in their days, in the days of old. You with your own hand drove out the nations, but them you planted. You afflicted the peoples, but then you set free. For not by their own sword did they win the land, nor did their own arm save them, but your right hand and your arm and the light of your face. For you delighted in them. You are my king, O God, ordain salvation for Jacob. Through you we push down our foes. Through your name we tread down those who rise up against us. For not in my bow do I trust, nor can my sword save me, but you have saved us from our foes, and have put to shame those who hate us. In God we have boasted continually, and we will give thanks to your name forever. Now there was the reminder of everything that God had done. Then verse 9, but you have rejected us and disgraced us, and have not gone down with our armies. You have made us turn back from the foe, and those who hate us have gotten spoil. You have made us like sheep for slaughter, and have scattered us among the nations. You sold your people for a trifle, demanding no high price for them. You have made us the taunt of our neighbors, the derision and scorn of those around us. You've made us a byword among the nations. All day long my disgrace is before me, and shame has covered my face. At the sound of the taunter and the reviler, at the sight of the enemy and the avenger. All this has come upon us, though we have not forgotten you, and we have not been false to your covenant. Our heart has not turned back, nor have our steps departed from your ways, yet you have broken us in the place of jackals and covered us with the shadow of death. If we had forgotten the name of God, or spread out our hands to a foreign God, would not God discover this? For he knows the secrets of the heart. Yet for your sake we are killed all day long, and we are regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. Awake! Awake! This is as we begin that last section of this song. Awake! Why are you sleeping, O Lord? Rouse yourself. Do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face, and why do you forget our affliction and oppression? For our soul is bowed down to the dust, and our belly clings to the ground. Rise up. Come to our help. Redeem us for the sake of your steadfast love. Oh, so interesting and so powerful, the last words of this psalm, recognized as a part of who God is, and these, even though they're complaining, are recognizing that chesed is definitely a part of who God is. It reminds me of the sermon I'm going to be preaching in a couple of days here on love, or the loving kindness of God, which I will mention. And a little study reveals that this characteristic of God, this part of who God is mentioned more times in the Old Testament than God's holiness. We understand he is holy, and we are supposed to be holy like him. We also understand that he has a steadfast love for us, a loving kindness, or a mercy, it is sometimes called. So, taking a look at this psalm, we see several things. We see, first of all, an acknowledgement of what God had done, had accomplished, the victories that he had brought his people. And I would point out that it is attributed to him. So that's a very faithful position to God, is it not? And that's the right perspective. The victories they had over their enemies were done at the hand of God and not theirs. And that's a fundamental point of faith. We might point out Joshua in Hebrews chapter 11. The Hebrew writer will tell us that by faith the walls of Jericho fell down. You remember how the walls of Jericho fell down? It was by faith, because Joshua listened to God's instruction or his revelation, did what God said, and God said, if you do this, the walls will come down. So, yeah, allowing it to be God's doing and not ours, us being simply tools in the accomplishment of God's will, is so very important. And so it's pointed out here by the Psalter here, that yes, all of these victories were ours, but not at our hand. It's because of what you did. So what's happened? What's happened, God? Because he's going to go now with several of these you haves. I counted them once before. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 7 you haves. And in essence, they every one are saying, now you have allowed. Whereas at one point you brought us victory. Now you're allowing distress and oppression. That's a fair enough thing, I think. And God's okay with that. You see the order here, right? You see the order that God gives here. First, we acknowledge God's help and blessings and victories in our life first, and then bring to Him, okay, now I don't understand. Now I don't understand why the chaos, why the upheaval, why the oppression, why the defeats rather than the victories. Why has that happened? And that's okay. And they are claiming, as the Psalter writes in behalf of the congregation, I would say, that they have been faithful. They have been faithful to God. And yet all of this has happened. There's a lot of directions we could go here. Some might say that they say they are faithful, but they really haven't been. But the description that they give is of faithful people. They haven't even turned to another God. And they say the God in heaven would know anything that we have done that would be disobedient to or in rebellion to Him. No, they have been faithful. I think maybe some have been sold a bill of goods when it comes to becoming a believer and a follower and a disciple of Jesus Christ, that all problems will go away. And that is not the case. Jesus Himself will say, in this world you will have trouble, or some versions say tribulation. But be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. The world doesn't get the last shot. Jesus has already taken care of that. Even if the last shot is our death. Oh, death, where is your sting? Oh, grave, where is your victory? He's overcome it. It seems to me that the writer, in writing in behalf of the congregation here, realizes that that's the case. And so he simply turns now to God and says, wake up. Wake up. Awake. Why are you sleeping, O Lord? It kind of reminds us, does it not, of when Jesus was asleep in that boat in Mark chapter 4. And there was a storm coming, and those disciples were doing everything they could do, and everything they could do was not going to bring them victory. They were having problems. And these disciples were having problems really understanding who Christ was and believing in Him, but they wanted to, and they were following Him as best they could. They were doing what He asked to do. They had lots of misunderstanding, and so do you and I. And finally, Jesus did wake up. Peace, be still. But He does say, why were you afraid? It seems to me the same anticipation is here as this psalm ends. Wake up, God, like we know you're going to do. Okay, do that. Why? Because we remember your steadfast love. And we need to remember that too. That though we are faithful, maybe not perfectly faithful, because no one's perfect except God, but yet we believe in God, we love Him, we have given our lives to Jesus Christ, we're dedicated to Him, we serve Him as best we can, and these things happen. We need to first be reminded of what God has done in our lives, and even when we're aware of what God has done in the lives of others, offer our complaint to God, and then acknowledge the reality that our God is a God of love and mercy. He says, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. We also need to allow that He's going to work in His way and not in the way we expect Him to. We can go back to Joshua and the walls of Jericho. I'm pretty sure that Joshua would have got out the plans for the city of Jericho, and started trying to calculate, well, we can attack here, we can attack there. That's what he would have done. But he was told to march around the walls. And he did, and the walls fell. The walls that are built up in your life, that are causing the destruction, that are causing the barrier, that are the barricade, you might say, to your life, will come down. But they'll come down as God directs. I hope you take a blessing from this today, and I anticipate that you have. We'll move into Psalm 45 next week as we get closer and closer to the end of the first third of the Psalter. God bless you and have a super great day.